And as I was waking up, as I was coming more and more into the consciousness, that feeling started to fade. And an inner voice basically was saying, yeah, but that's not possible for you. You're not going to have that. You don't get to have that. And the crazy thing is that I didn't question it. I didn't say, who do you think you are? I accepted it. Welcome to A Life Differently, a space for deep, real, and also fun conversations about life beyond the status quo. I'm Ronnie Hill, a mindset and manifestation life coach, and I know what it's like to feel like you're not doing life the quote-unquote right way. But what if there is no right way? What if the life you actually want is possible? If you're willing to question what you've been told. That's what this podcast is about. Breaking free from expectations, trusting yourself, and creating a life that's yours. Together, we'll explore how to unlearn limitations, tap into our power, and create a life that actually feels good, not just one that looks good on paper. If you've ever felt like you were meant for more but didn't know where to start, you're not alone. Let's figure it out together. Hello, and welcome to the first episode of A Life Differently. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for clicking on this episode, for tuning in, for making the time to listen. I really deeply appreciate you being here right now. Honestly, when I sat down to record this, I actually said the wrong thing. And I think it's just because I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited to be here. One of my favorite coaches, mentors, teachers, friends, Sharina Skandani. She is the coach of Wholehearted Coaching and also the creator of a Wholehearted Life Coaching certification. She always says that the amount that you want to do something equals the amount of fear that you're going to feel around doing that thing. And that's how I'm feeling now. Creating the show, I was so excited for it. I just have a million ideas of things that I want to share with you, to talk to you about, to explore with you, to bring guests onto the show about. And then the closer it got to the launch date, the more and more fear I felt. I can just honestly tell you that I'm feeling so much fear and resistance in my body right now. And I just want to share that with you. So welcome to A Life Differently. This is a space that has been in my heart for a long time to create. I want this to be a space where we explore what it means to live life outside of the mold, outside of the status quo, outside of everything that we're told we're supposed to do and we should be doing. I want to explore with you stories that we've been told about ourselves. I want us to together become aware of those things, address those things, figure out what it is that we really want at our core, so that we can step into something that is much more aligned, much more true, and much more ours. Actually sitting down and trying to record this episode has felt so difficult. I can't even tell you what take I'm on. But here we are. We are here in this space. So I want to tell you more about my intentions for the space, who I am. Then I want to share a little bit with you on today's topic. I actually want to start things off with a little reminder in case no one's told you lately. You don't have to prove your worth. Who you are right now is already enough. Just in case you haven't heard that lately. So I created the show because I've always wanted something different. I know firsthand what it's like to feel stuck between the life you're told to live, all the things that you're supposed to do, all the things you should do and should want, and the life that actually feels aligned for you. And for each of us, it's going to be something different, something unique. And my goal for this show is not to shun anyone's way of living and going after life, but to open our eyes that if the way you're told to live life, the things you're told to go after don't really light you up, don't really satisfy you, don't really fulfill you, that there are other options, that there is more out there, and that you are worthy and deserving of going after those things and having exactly what you want and having the experiences that you desire. I believe that for so many of us, stepping outside of this mold can feel like an act of rebellion, and it actually may feel like damn near impossible, honestly. But what if instead of rebellion, it's actually more of an act of returning to ourselves, to our true desires, to the truth of who we've always been beneath all the layers of external expectations, outside conditionings, and the stories that we've been handed for so long about who we should be, who we're supposed to be. That's what this space is for. It's for the questioners, the deep thinkers, those of us who feel like we've outgrown the narratives given to us and we're ready to step into something new, something different. When it comes to the show being called A Life Differently, honestly, this exact phrase came to me and I cannot tell you where or when it came to me, but it stuck. And one of the things I do remember about this kind of meaning it holds for me is that for so much of my life, for most of my life, I have not been the main focus of my life, which really is just really, really sad to say, to hear, to accept, but that's been my truth. I have for so much of my life focused on everyone else, put everyone else before me. And I never really put myself first. Even when I thought I was, I really wasn't. So as I got older and I started trying to figure out kind of like, what is it that I really want? What I actually really wanted in this life, what I actually wanted my life to look like, to feel like, the things I wanted to have. I was having a hard time thinking about those things. Like I kind of had some, but I felt like they were just too far away. I felt like they were just dreams. They weren't things that, actually happened to people in real life. They were just movie type of dreams or TV dreams. They weren't things that people actually had in their waking lives because that stuff wasn't possible. But then I realized that I was extremely limiting myself. And I was ultimately saying that what I was desiring and what I wanted wasn't real. And it's like, well, if it's not real, then why do I want it? Why is there such a strong pull in me? Why is there such a strong desire for this thing? Why would God create me to want these things and I can't actually have them? So being torn between imagery from movies and TV and what I actually saw in my life, I realized that I had a hard time also stating what I wanted because I had never seen it, never experienced it. It just kind of existed as this picture in my head. And I would sit down to try and figure out what I wanted. You know how you sit down and kind of figure out either like your goals for the new year or your vision board, or when you start to dabble in manifestation and you start to think about what is it that I really, really want in this life. I had a hard time because all I could think about was what I saw, because what I saw was what I thought was possible. And when you only believe what's possible is what you see, then what you believe is possible is extremely, extremely limited. And when I allowed myself to kind of think outside of that, I realized that I wanted something different. I didn't want the daily life that I saw everyone around me living. I didn't want the relationships that I saw everyone around me having. I didn't want the demeanor, the mindset. I didn't want any of it. And I think there's also like an internal battle, an internal conflict of you're just ungrateful. But in this case, no. None of that stuff was resonating with me. And I thought, there's got to be so much more to life. There's got to be something better. This cannot be it. This cannot be the only thing available to me and for me. There's no way. This doesn't make sense. So that's a little bit of where the title of the show come from. Like that's where I'm coming from when I say a life differently. And honestly, I really thought so hard and I did research on the darn word because I was like, is this even a word? I feel like I never really hear anyone use this word. And I'm like, am I saying this right? Is this title going to resonate? Does this make sense? There's so many things in my head right now that I'm actually trying to stay focused in speaking to you. And I think that if you stick around the show, you're definitely going to learn more about me, who I am, how I operate, and how I move through this world. But I definitely can give you the long version of a story because I'm going to give you all the background to how I got to this present point in time. It actually makes sense because given my interests where I really love learning about why things are the way that they are, it makes sense why I explain things that way. So in this space of a life differently, I really want this to be a place where we can challenge limiting beliefs, where we can explore what it means to manifest on our own terms so that we can understand that we, as people of the global majority, as people of color, that manifestation is also for us. I want this to be a space where we can redefine what success and fulfillment and joy actually are in our lives. And I want it to be a space where we can do that in a way that feels right for us. And if we're going to do that, I think it's only fair that I actually start by giving you an actual introduction, who I am and why I believe this is so important. So who am I? I'm Ronnie. Hi. Well, one, I am a referential millennial. So when I say certain things, I cannot help but to respond in the reference. So when I say who am I, y'all, the only thing that's coming to my head is Petey Pablo, and now it's stuck in my head. And that's all I hear in my head. So if you get it, I love it. I love it. But I'm Ronnie. I want to share a little bit about the intersections of my identity. I think it's really important to give you an idea in that way of who I am, some of the experiences of my life, what has brought me to this point, what has shaped who I am in this present moment. So I am a plus size, able-bodied, heterosexual, cisgender woman, multiracial, Black and Samoan, and other races, but those are my two races. Spiritually curious, deeply introspective. I'm the eldest daughter of a number of siblings I have lost count of. No, seriously, let me count. Okay, wait, there's me, Tajik, Xavier. So in total, there's 9 of us. So I have 8 siblings. And I think every time I say that to people, they go, oh my God, their mouths drop. And I'm like, I have a very interesting family dynamic. It's normal to me because it's mine, And I think that's one of the interesting things about quote unquote normal is that you don't realize you're different until somebody points it out. But I grew up in a separate household. My mom and dad separated, divorced when I was a baby, I think, when I was very, very young. So I'm their only child together. And on my mom's side, I have 3 siblings and a step sibling. And on my dad's side, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 siblings. This is like funny because I'm just like, I have lost count. When I was younger, I used to be able to say it right off the top of my head. I could tell you how many siblings I had. I could tell you their ages and I could tell you their birthdays. And now I'm just like, I have no idea. But yeah, I'm the eldest daughter out of all of those kids. I grew up in I guess I would label us as like middle class, lower class, middle class. I'm from the South. I grew up in the country, what I call the country. And then when my mom remarried, we moved to, I guess, like a better part of town, more of like suburbs. It's interesting because I think you live in like quote unquote better part of town, but you still live in like pretty like low socioeconomic town. Like I graduated and I think there were 200 people in my graduating class. And to me, that feels like a lot. I consider myself a cycle breaker. I really do. I'm the one who's always felt like I didn't really fit in with everyone else. I am a huge questioner. I question everything. I always want to know why. I always want to understand the root of things. I always want to understand the origins of things. I grew up in the Christian church. I grew up in Baptist and Apostolic churches. Over the past few years, I've really been exploring my spirituality, my connection to source outside of the church. I've spent a lot of time really peeling back the layers of everything I was told to believe about myself, everything that everyone else has given to me, everything everyone has put on me about who I am, about what my life should be, what life in general should be, about what's possible for me. And let me tell you, as much as I am here to encourage you to do this work, I also want to preface this by saying that this work is work. Like, it is work. I often have heard from people in my life, one of my favorite and least favorite quotes is not that deep. And I'm just like, oh, baby, let me tell you, it is always that deep. But here's the thing. It's a lot easier, and I say that word hesitantly, it's a lot easier to move through life with that belief that it's not that deep. It's a lot easier. And you can hear how much hesitation I have for that. And what I mean is that I actually do believe that a lot of us can move through life in the way that we're told that doesn't really align with who we are, because that's the quote unquote norm. That's what's common. We're told at a very young age to not really listen to ourselves. We're very conditioned a lot through society and culture to not trust ourselves, to not listen to the inner voice inside. So the volume on that inner voice goes down. It goes way, 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 way down. And I think that we can move through life a good bit of the time just doing what we're supposed to be doing, right? But eventually, you can only do something that doesn't feel aligned with you for so long before you really want more and you need more. And this is not the topic we're getting into today, but I'm just going to make a note that I think this is one of the reasons why people go through the quote unquote midlife crisis. I think that a lot of times people just get to that point where they're like, I have not been living the life I want to live. I've just been doing everything I'm supposed to do. And then they get to a breaking point. And then that's when they kind of go off and start doing all this other stuff that seems so unlike them. And I'm like, in actuality, I think that's kind of a way of them breaking free. But I digress. I believe that sharing these elements of my identity, the intersections of our identity, our lived experiences and our stories is very powerful. And I think it's also very necessary. It's how we begin to see ourselves more clearly. And it's how we begin to dismantle the narratives that were never ours to carry. I think it's also important for you as a listener to understand who I am and where I'm coming from. I think it's important in creating, I'm not going to say creating a safe space. We'll talk about that sometime down the line, but creating a space of trust. I'm going to say that. I also want to express that as much as I work to operate and move and create a space that is inclusive and decolonized, that I am still learning. So I ask you to keep that in mind, but also know that if at any point I do anything that is harmful, that I am open to conversation. I'm open to being called in. I'm open to talking about it. So I shared so much with you about some of the things about my identity, just some, because I mean, come on, that's just like grazing the surface. I think it's a great way to kind of segue into today's topic, what I wanted this first episode to be about. I want to share with you this question that hit me just so hard when I first heard it. You know, you hear things and they just literally make you go, wait. I get this a lot. The more I work on myself, the more I allow myself to feel things, the more I have those experiences because I actually try to pause and let them just happen. So the question is, who do you think you are? And I first heard this from Aaliyah Lovely. If you don't know, Aaliyah Lovely is the host of Spiritual Shit podcast, which is a phenomenal podcast. Check it out. She is an empath, a medium, a guide, a chaos magician. She's also an author of the book Meaningful Manifestation, which I'm definitely going to plug because it's a great book. I don't have much context to offer you on why she was saying the question. I was listening to one of her episodes and she was asking a series of questions. And I know she said, who do you think you are? Who do you think you aren't? And that question just really stuck with me. Because when you really sit with it, who do you think you are? I mean, it just cracks open something deeper than the surface level labels that would carry. And that's what I want to talk with you about today. I think at some point we all learn to define ourselves by the roles we have, the expectations and the identities that are given to us. Like I just shared with you, daughter, friend, leader, eldest sibling, fixer of all the things, responsible one, funny one, the smart one, the one who should, the one who shouldn't. But beneath all the labels, who are we really? And I believe a huge part of why we feel disconnected, stuck, or unfulfilled is because we've been told who we are and who we aren't for so long by everyone else. Then we start believing it. We accept stories about ourselves that say, you're too much, you're not enough, you're not worthy of that dream, of that love, of that life, of that joy. And we hear these so much, we begin to believe them. We begin to say them to ourselves, about ourselves, and we end up settling in our lives. We we chase this life that looks good on paper. I like to call it the checklist life, but it's really hollow. It doesn't satisfy us. It doesn't fulfill us. It doesn't actually address or satisfy the desires that we actually have. And we silence these desires because they don't align with that checklist, right? Because the checklist is what life is supposed to be. So in thinking about this question of who do you think you aren't, I actually want to share something personal with you. I really, really went back and forth on whether or not I actually want to share this because I felt that it was a little too vulnerable, a little too intimate, but here we are. One of the things that I love about the subconscious mind is that it loves to answer questions. If you ask it a question, it's going to put the work in to get you the answer to that question. That's ultimately what happened to me when this question popped into my awareness. And it sent me the answer in a dream. In this dream, I saw one of my old crushes. I tend to have a lot of awareness in my dreams most of the times. So in the dream, I thought, why am I seeing him? I'm pretty much over that crush. But the dream kept going on. There were kind of like these little random things that were happening. But ultimately in the dream, I could tell that my crush liked me. And there was a moment, a very split second of a moment where our crush and I were talking and I looked at him and he leaned in to kiss me and I pulled back and then he pulled back. And literally just that split moment, I felt the most amazing feeling. It seems weird because it wasn't a moment where, we kissed in a dream. It was a moment where I pulled back, but it's a dream, okay? We're not going to spend time trying to put ration to it. But what stood out to me was how I felt in that moment. And I felt the most amazing, loving moment as that man looked at me. And I realized this is what I want. And I woke up not too long after, and I could still feel the feeling. And now being awake in my conscious mind, I was like, whoa, I had never felt this feeling before, ever. I couldn't even imagine this feeling. And here it was. And I thought, holy cow, this is what I want to experience in a relationship. And as I was waking up, as I was coming more and more into the consciousness, that feeling started to fade. And an inner voice inside of me basically was saying, yeah, but that's not possible for you. You're not going to have that. You don't get to have that. And the crazy thing is that I didn't question it. I didn't say, who do you think you are? I accepted it, and I literally, as the feeling, that amazing, wonderful feeling started to fade away and this inner voice started to literally step in and take its place. I just went about my morning and I accepted it. And later on, I thought about it and I thought, whoa, all of that was weird. The feeling, the dream was weird, but the feeling I had, which was amazing, was weird. But also this complete exiling of that feeling by this inner voice. In that split second of a moment in the dream, in this experience I had of waking up, in this moment or this time that I was paying attention to all of that was happening, I really started to realize that I don't believe I'm worthy of a love that I actually want. The kind of love that feels surreal, that defies logic. And when I sat with that, when I allowed myself to be aware of it and to explore it a little further, I had to ask myself, why do I believe that? Because it's so sad. One of the things I know about myself is that I truly desire a loving relationship, more so a partnership. And the word difference means so much to me because I've seen several relationships in my life, but I never really see a partnership. And that's one of the really important aspects of that. But no matter how much I desired it, no matter how much I wanted it, what this dream made me realize, what my subconscious mind brought to my conscious mind's attention, was that I didn't believe that was actually possible for me. And why? We think about, who do you think you are? I apparently don't believe that I am someone worthy and deserving and capable of having that kind of love, of having that kind of feeling. Isn't that crazy? This story that I'm sharing with you it's my personal example, of course, of what doing this work is. It's what I've always been interested in, honestly, of asking the questions and getting down to the root of things, because it's just a series of asking questions and giving them time and space to come. But we can talk about that later. To share a little bit more with you, I really wanted to know, where did this story come from? Like, why do I believe this? And why do I believe it so much that I was okay? I didn't question this quote unquote knowing coming in and pushing out this amazing feeling, right? So as I sat with it, I gave myself time to sit with it. I peeled back the layers. One thing really became clear to me, that I had been taught this both explicitly and implicitly, that who I am as I am just isn't enough for that kind of love. I had been taught, I had this actual belief that love has all of these conditions. That when it comes to you being a woman, and I'm saying woman as in, me and how I identify, noting that I am a cisgender woman, that I just am not good enough just as I am, period. That's what I've been taught. And I'm like, holy shit, what? And I also want to note that sometimes when you come into that awareness, allowing yourself to feel whatever you're feeling is so important, because I can honestly tell you that anger came with that, because what the fuck? But I asked it, where does this come from? And one of the first places I actually saw this and I actually realized this took root was from my own childhood, from my own upbringing, from my own home. That I was actually getting these messages, mostly from my parents. and from other people around me, but mostly the biggest identifier was my home. That's where it was coming from. And this is so hard to say because let me tell you, working on and creating this podcast is an absolute dream for me. But the actual act of sitting down and recording feels so difficult because my voice has been stifled for so much of my life. And one of the things that I'm working on, part of the journey that I'm currently on, is this reclamation of self, which also is this reclamation of my voice, of my throat chakra. So you're going to hear that. You're probably going to hear that as this podcast goes on. You're going to hear me kind of stumble over my words. You're going to hear me kind of pull back on things I might want to say. You're going to hear me maybe give you explanations that I feel like I would not want to give, but I feel like I have to because that's what I've been conditioned to do, right? So with that being said, one of my fears and hesitations is also coming on here to share my personal experiences with my family and my friends, mostly my family, and having that fear of what's going to happen when that person hears this podcast or that person is told that I said such and such about them. But in this particular instance, what I could say is that when it came to identifying who was behind this inner voice, this inner critic that was at this deep rooted belief, honestly, one of the main people I could identify was my stepdad. And he is that old school guy. I want to say kind of like that whole 1950s guy who, expects to go to work and comes home to a clean house with the wife who serves him a martini at the door. What is that from? I Dream a Genie? But no, he really is. He really is. And a lot of the views and things that he expressed upon me growing up were very, very deeply rooted in this patriarchal society, very misogynistic. And being the only girl, the only daughter in the house, it was very clear that a lot of the things being said to me were just for me, that I was being held to a different standard. And I know people say that as you being the oldest child, but it wasn't just that. I can't tell you how many times I heard, how do you expect to get a man if you don't cook, if you don't clean, if you're lazy, things like that, right? And I really just remember thinking like, first of all, I'm like, there's other kids in this house. It's not just me. But then also, I actually am very rebellious when I think about it because even when I hear it now, I am transported back to that time as like this teenager. And I'm just like, my responses would be things like, well, why would I want a man who can't cook? Why would I want a man who don't clean? Like, I don't understand your argument because it just ain't landed for me. Like, I don't get it. But the point I'm trying to make is that these statements, these observations, these criticisms were very much meant for me, the girl, the daughter, the female. And I really thought, with my rebellious remarks that these weren't really landing with me and that I brushed them off. I mean, because if this is what being with a man looks like, I don't want it, right? But what this recent realization made me realize was that those words actually did stick and they were very deeply rooted within me. And then, of course, there were also these other subtle passive aggressive moments from other people in my life, my parents too, and just other people around you. And of course, culture, society that, it's like the way people don't have to say the words directly, but the judgment is there. And especially when it comes to like my weight and my size. And if you don't know what I look like, I am a big girl. I'm 5'7". I'm over 200 pounds. I'm fat. No sugarcoating it. And I wish I could tell you that I fully believe I'm worthy of this love that I desire. I really wish I could say that without hesitation. And part of me feels like I can, but knowing that I had this revelation, I realized that those words felt hollow. I didn't actually believe them. I actually wholeheartedly believe that I am not good enough, worthy enough, deserving enough of a love that I desire, just as I am. That I am too big, I am too lazy, I am not clean enough, I am not well-groomed enough, I am not enough of a modern woman, I'm not, there's all of these things, like I don't dress well enough, all of these things where I just really, really believe that no matter what, I'm just not enough, you know? And I can sit here and I can think, I'm not good enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not lovable enough. And there really is this duality operating within me that there's that part of me that is saying those things and believes those things. And there's another part of me that's saying, what the fuck? Like, bitch, who do you think you aren't? But really, that realization hit so hard because that is a deep, deep rooted belief I have. And you know what happens when we carry those beliefs? Knowingly and unknowingly, we hold back, we shrink ourselves, we deny ourselves what we truly want in life. So for me, I hold back in love, even though I know that one of my deepest desires is to have a loving, fulfilling, genuine partnership. I don't date as much as I like. I don't say yes as often as I could. I don't allow myself to pursue anyone I'm interested in. And that can come with, other things too. But there is a part of me that still believes that I have to wait, that I have to be better first, that I have to fix something before I can have what I truly desire. Whew, y'all, please tell me I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. So what am I getting at with all of this? Y'all, I'm not here to solve anything today. I don't have all the answers for myself yet. I'm just sharing that with you. That's where I am right now. That's literally where I am in that exploration. And one of the things I hope you also get and maybe find some solace in with the show is knowing that I'm not an expert yet. I don't have all the answers yet. I'm still figuring things out. But part of doing this show is part of me allowing myself to be seen and accepting who I am, that reclamation of self, that I can share this thing that I really, really want to share with you, even though I don't have it all figured out yet. But what I do know is that the first step to changing these stories, these narratives that we hold, that we tell ourselves, that others have told us, is simply by becoming aware of them. That's really the first step, guys. That's it. So if anything, I really want to invite you into that awareness. I want you to ask yourself, who do I think I'm not? For me, I don't think I'm someone worthy of love, just as I am. And do I really, really believe that? No, but also, yeah. And after you sit with that question, I want to offer you another question. What if I am? What if I am worthy of love, just as I am? What if I am lovable enough? What if I am good enough? What if I am attractive enough? What if I am enough exactly as I am in this very moment? Does that feel different? I feel so much different. That question, that different shift in perspective, it feels lighter. It feels new. There's possibility. There's opportunity. It feels open instead of closed off and finite. And honestly, it feels a lot safer. So I feel like today really took you on an interesting journey. And if you made it to this point, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you will extend me some grace in working to bring this thing to you that I really, really love and I'm so excited about, while also working on reclaiming my voice. I want to challenge you to sit with that question. Who do you think you aren't? Who do I think I'm not? And then allow yourself to ask, but what if I am? Just want to see where it takes you. And if you like, I would really love to hear from you. You can comment on the show. I know you can comment on Spotify. You can send me a DM, send me a message on Instagram at A Life Differently. You can email me, alifedifferently@gmail.com. I just really want to hear your thoughts. And if this episode resonated with you, I'd love if you subscribe. I'd love if you shared it with someone else. I'd love if you left a review of the show. And if you take nothing else from today, I hope you take this, that you are already more than enough, just as you are. And it's okay if you don't really believe that right now. But let's just kind of start one step at a time. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep going for something different. Thank you for joining me for today's conversation. If you found something meaningful here, I'd love for you to share it. Subscribe to the show. Leave a review. It all helps the podcast. I'd love for you to share it with me as well. You can find me on Instagram at A Life Differently. And until next time, keep trusting yourself, honoring your path, and taking up space in this life because you deserve to. What did I just say? I just said we were doing an interview. Holy cow. Damn. Who got married? Wait. I didn't know they were together. That is so awesome. My first time doing this, but it's here. We're gonna figure this out. This is not my interview episode. This is the first episode of the show. Oh my gosh. That is hilarious.